show tonight, I'm talking about the Starlost. More specifically, should you watch the Starlost? The answer to that is no, unless you're somebody like me who enjoys a botched project, which is what the Starlost was. This was a program that was created by Harlan Ellison, and the story goes something like this, that Ellison pitched the idea for a science fiction TV show about a generational Ark colony ship hundreds of years in the future that has gone off course. There's been an accident, and all of these different arcologies within the ship have all split off from each other and mostly have reverted to a feudal state. The idea of the Ark ship is a science fiction trope that goes back to the 1930s, possibly earlier. A very interesting recent take on a colony ship gone wrong is the game Analog, A Hate Story. Look for that on Steam. If you don't mind reading lots of text, it's a terrific game. Poignant, even. But we were talking about the Starlost. Ellison had pitched this idea to a producer, and the producer wanted to get him to sign on without having written anything. Ellison, being the president of the Writers Guild at the time, refused, but he said, I'll make you a tape recording, and I'll do, like a spiel, and explain the concept of the show. So Ellison recorded this tape. I forget how long it was. The producer took this tape recording and went and sold the show behind Ellison's back. Then a writer's strike happened, and Ellison refused to write for the show because, again, he was president of the Writers Guild at the time. Originally, the show was going to premiere with a big budget and a lot of hoopla. Douglas Trumbull, the famous special effects technician from 2001: A Space Odyssey, among other movies, was developing a new system called Magicam, which would allow seamless in-camera compositing of actors against modeled backgrounds. Trivia, Peter Hyams, the director who filmed Outland, for that movie had come up with a camera system to essentially do what I think Trumbull was trying to do in 1973. And Outland came out, I think, in 1981. So yeah, it was almost another 10 years before that technology was really ready. Magicam didn't work out. Sidebar, this would be one of several times when Douglas Trumbull tried to get the jump on a new motion picture technology. A similar thing happened to him on the movie Brainstorm, although that had to do with film that was 48 frames per second. Yeah, the only thing Douglas Trumbull ended up doing for the production was building a partial model of the Ark ship. But I'm pretty sure he did not shoot it because what they show of the ship on the program looks like it was just shot with a video camera by, like a studio hand. It's nothing fancy. Yeah, anyway, Keir Dullea from 2001 became attached to the project. This was a show that was going to be on primetime television. But you had Ellison unable to write anything because of the writer's strike. You had the special effects technology ended up not working out. The budget of the show got slashed to ribbons and ended up being shot entirely in Canada. Ellison had stated to the effect that the writers of the show, the Canadian television writers, really didn't know what they were doing with a high-concept TV show. And they were also being paid not even a quarter of what writers were being paid to bring a script to television in the US. So the whole thing is like this colossal debacle, right? However, Ellison had done outlines for 5 or 6 episodes. And if you watch the series, you can tell which ones were from stories he had written. In fact, I would say the first 3 or 4 episodes of the show are, if not technically brilliant, interesting, just to see a TV show based on that kind of subject, but done with a soap opera budget. So again, I enjoy a fascinating train wreck, and the Starlost is a fascinating train wreck. I don't recommend sitting through the entire series. See, the problem is, as the show goes on and they run out of the ideas that they had been given, the writing crew started doing more generic Saturday morning cartoon kind of stories. Made worse by the fact that the writers seem to have forgotten the core idea of the show, was that it was a generational ship that it was beginning to de-evolve and fall apart. So you have episodes where they start meeting like members of the crew who are still functioning in some area of the ship as if nothing had happened in the last 400 years. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The final episode of the show, the main character is being recruited to join a police force. They were thinking of a spin-off. All of that being said, the first few episodes are interesting to look at. If you were just looking for some creative ideas about how to shoot science fiction with no budget, the Starlost looked like it had slightly less of a budget than mid-70s Doctor Who would be a good comparison. Some good things about it. I love any of the scenes in the show with the cranky central computer. I know the computer was based on the science fiction writer Ben Bova, who was a science advisor for the show until it sort of went to hell. And he actually wrote a novel about working as a science advisor on that show, and the book was called The Star-Crossed. There's also lots of interesting cameos. Barry Morse, most people know from Space 1999, is in it. John Colicos, who was in Battlestar Galactica. Sterling Hayden, who is in Doctor Strangelove, he plays the head of the quasi-Quaker community in the first episode. Probably the most profane desecration that was done during the show is that the first episode that Ellison wrote was titled Phoenix Without Ashes. Producers changed it to Voyage of Discovery, something like that. Phoenix Without Ashes, of all the titles to change. Yeah, so overall, don't check it out, but if you're interested in low-tech, ultra-cheap sci-fi television of the early 70s, with a kind of interesting concept, watch the first few episodes. There's some cool stuff in there. Alright, see you next time.